This message is brought to you by Journey Life Church. Visit us today at journeylife.church or find us on Facebook.
So, my sermon part of this series is going to be called "Where's the Love?" Because nowadays you turn on the news and you watch it for a little while, and it won't be long before you hear about the newest terrorist attack, the newest hate crime, the violence to or by police officers. And it's not only in the United States, but it's all the way across the world. We see it in France. We see it all over the place, just constantly on the news, just all these things happening. But looking at it, we're like, what's this world come to? Like, where's the love here? Because as Christians, we look at ourselves as people who just love unconditionally. We love so much. If people need something, we're there for them. If people are hurting, we're there for them, because that's what Christians are supposed to do. And we kind of see ourselves like this. It's a big red heart, it's full of love, and it's great, makes us feel awesome. But sometimes we don't always show that much love. Like this morning, somebody cut me off on the way to church. So I may have said or thought a few things that I probably shouldn't have. But that's not that bad. That's still good. It could be worse. I could be out and drinking and partying and doing all that stuff on a regular basis. And people like that, I mean, we don't want to associate ourselves with people like that. So, but again, not that bad. Because we're still a good amount of love there. And we only hang out with Christians, so we have good influences. We're not like Jill. When Jill's got those friends that you just watch and you're like, oh man, you need to have better choice in people to hang around, because those people are just terrible to be around. And they've got all those piercings and stuff, and we can't have that. Piercings, tattoos. Oh my gosh, tattoos. Don't want that either. So, it still looks like a heart. We're good. But Jill's living with her boyfriend. They're doing who knows what. Wouldn't want to associate ourselves with that. And speaking of lack of marriage, there's that young couple. Can you believe they're just giving up? Getting a divorce. Just throwing in the towel there. And then there's a young girl. She got pregnant, couldn't handle it, so she got an abortion. It's so disgusting. But the good news, at least we're not expected to talk or minister to any of the gay or transgender people. So, after that, it's quiet in here. It's stuff that hurts, but the truth is, it's quiet in here because at least one of those statements, everyone in this room, including myself, I'm no exemption here, every one of us has thought or said something similar. So we started off with this big red heart, showing how much love we have as Christians. But now, we're stuck here with the big red X. So is this how the world sees us? One way we can try to figure that out, like good old Google. You go in there and you start typing things in. It's always so helpful. It gives you suggestions on the top things searched. So go on there and search, why are Christians, and the number one thing that will pop up as a suggestion, so mean? And that hurts. That hurts real bad. So I'm not sitting here saying that we're bad people or anything like that. I'm saying that we need work. Just as much as everybody else out there, we need work. So let's go ahead and move forward from that, though. Because I'm not saying we shouldn't hate the sin. We just need to stop and think about it and make sure that we're not turning the sinner into the sin. because as Christians, we are supposed to love. God says it. He says that we're supposed to look at people in the world and love on them, bring them to him. So let's jump in right now to the Bible. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13. A lot of people know a chunk of this passage. If you've ever been to a wedding, love is patient, love is kind, all that stuff, you've heard it a million times at a wedding. I'm going to start at the very beginning of chapter 13 here. It says, "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but I do not have love, I am a resounding gong or clanging cymbal." Now, if we jump on over to the Message version, which for those of you who haven't read it before, the Message is more in today's language, makes it a little bit easier for you to understand. Just plain English, here it is. I like how they word it. They say, I am the creaking of a rusty gate. Now think about that. It's awful. So we have our outreach moments that we do around here. One of my favorite ones being our Thanksgiving baskets. For those of you who don't know about that, haven't been around here long enough for that, or if you're just visiting, we go out and we provide full baskets full of food, full Thanksgiving meals for families in this area that can't afford it themselves. So we go there and we present the baskets to them. We say something along the lines of, "Here, on behalf of Journey Life Church, here's a basket. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. God bless you." It's a great sentiment. We make them feel loved. We walk away when they feel loved, and we're giving them this free of charge, no strings attached, and it blows people's minds. But what if we sit there and we see into their apartments? We see stuff that's in their apartments, and maybe we start to judge and stuff like that. So if we're literally the creaking of a rusty gate, you're handing over the basket and just so you're at work, your boss is being a jerk, and you're trying to be as nice and polite as possible, in spite of him saying stuff, but your mind is going. You're thinking about all these things that you want to say, but you're like, yeah, sure, no, that's fine, sure, yeah, I'll do better, and you're trying to be better, but if you're actually the rusty gate again, you're not saying those things out of love. You're saying those things out of, I want to keep my job. I got bills to pay. Or you're ministering to a teenage girl who got pregnant, and it quickly turns from loving on them to judging. And so they're sitting there, and all they're hearing is, I could go on, but I'm not gonna make that noise anymore. It's awful. Instead, we're gonna go back to 1 Corinthians. So the author continues to say, "If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have the faith that can move mountains, but I don't have love, I am nothing." If you think about that, nothing. "If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship, that I may boast, but I do not love, I gain nothing." So basically, you can walk the walk, you can talk the talk, and you know God, you have the spiritual gifts, but if you aren't loving your fellow man, it's worthless. There's no point to it. There are so many opportunities that we have on a daily basis where we can just show God's love. Any interaction we have with somebody, we can show God's love and show them what being a follower of Christ is really like. Show them what God has to offer in every interaction, rather than standing there with this big red X on our chest, looking at people saying, "Why would you do that? What were you thinking? That's a terrible idea. I would never do that." So the thing that I think illustrates that the most, has anybody here it's on Netflix. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's probably been on there. Has anybody seen the movie The Masked Saint? No? So it's a really good movie. It's cheesy. It's cheesy as all get out. It has all the cliches in it. But there's a part of the movie that really illustrates this and hit home like majorly with my wife and I as we're sitting there watching this movie. We couldn't find a video, so I'm gonna quote the scene back to you. I'm gonna describe what was happening in it. So in this movie, there's a pro wrestler. He gives up his life as a pro wrestler to become a pastor of a church that is failing miserably. Like, they can't keep people in the doors. They've got one tither that takes care of the church, so he thinks he runs the whole 9 yards. He goes there and he starts to try to turn things around for the city. It's a real bad city in Michigan, not Detroit. It's based on a true story too, so it makes it that much more powerful. So this pastor is dropping some trash off in an alley one night where he sees this prostitute about ready to get beaten by her pimp. And she's on her knees praying to God. She's like, God, please send someone to help me. Please, God. The pastor sees this. He goes back to his van, and in his van, because he's having trouble letting go of his past as a wrestler, he's got his wrestling mask in there. He puts it on so no one can recognize him, and he goes and he stops the man from hitting the woman there. So he helps her get to a shelter, make sure she knows where she's going, and the woman just so happens to walk into this pastor's church on Sunday. 10 minutes late. So she walks in the door, he's in the middle of speaking, and when she notices this, she goes, oh crap, and then she quietly tries to find a seat in the back. She sits next to a woman that's in the back, and the woman looks at her in disgust, because looking at her, you know what she does. You know where she's been. You know all about her. You've seen her standing there on the corner. So the woman gets up, moves a few rows forward, and starts whispering to another woman in a few pews forward. So at this point, the pastor, noticing the whole thing, he hadn't acknowledged her walking in late. He was just moving on. And when he sees the people whispering about her, he says, I'm sorry. Is there a problem here? The woman stands up and says, I think I'm the problem. I'm so sorry. And then she turns to leave. She turns to walk out of the church. The pastor runs down the aisle, chases after, saying, no, miss, wait, come back, please. She comes back, and the pastor reaches out to shake her hand and says, Pastor Chris Samuels, introduces himself, and she replies with Valerie and shakes his hand. It's nice to meet you, he continues. I would like to apologize on behalf of the congregation. He looks around the sanctuary for a second, and he says, for not properly welcoming you to church. I'm sorry, but it seems like the church here is judging you. They're looking down on you. Which, let me pause for a second, that would be really embarrassing. So, he says, I'm going to draw a line right here. With this flag, he draws an invisible line. He said, for those of you who have not sinned, cross that line. Nobody budges. He coaxes them. He says, come on, anyone, looking around? Nobody budges. Nobody even makes eye contact with them. Because at that point in time, he's reading their mail right there. He says, you are all so quick to condemn her, to tell her she doesn't belong. It makes me sad. I'm here to tell you folks, we can't keep praying while we sit on our hands. Now, who will welcome Valerie? And one by one, the congregation gets up, shakes her hand, introduces themselves. And it was a really powerful scene to watch. It wasn't because of the cheesy goodness that we expect in those Christian films. It wasn't the acting that got us. It wasn't the cliches that were used. It was because we were also sitting there in those pews. We're staring at Valerie as she walks in those doors. You know, we're sitting there, we're looking back at her saying, you're different. What? You don't belong here. Why are you here? I know what you're doing outside of these four walls. Why would you come in here? And that's the way that we look at things. Not because we mean to, but because that's what pops in our head. And we tend to have what's going on up here change the way that we treat people just because they're a little bit different than us. We sit there shouting at our neighbors in the pews about the speck in their eyes rather than taking a second to look towards God so he can remove the plank from our own. So, how do we do it? How do we get from the point where we're sitting in those pews judging the person walking in to the point where Pastor Chris Samuels is, willing and ready to love on each and every person that comes in, regardless of their sin, regardless of their background. I personally want to get to the point where I can be like, oh, that's your sin? That's awesome. Let me love on you. come here, give me a hug. I want to get there. I'm not there. I will admit it in front of all of you. This video will be up on YouTube later, and everybody in the world can see it and can see I am not perfect. I judge people. I get mad at people. I sit there and I think bad things about people, especially that guy that cut me off on the way to church. But there's an estimated 2.2 billion Christians in the world today, with a B, billion. Can you imagine what this world would look like if everyone stopped focusing on everybody's sin and started loving on people, and not just to get people here on Sundays? I don't care if you're getting people to come here on Sundays. My thing is we need to go out there and show God's love. We need to teach people the way of love. We need to teach people that Christians are about love. Christians aren't mean. We need to be loving people. I want to get to the point where all of us here can sit down, have coffee with somebody, build a relationship with somebody, regardless of their religion, their sexual orientation, their thoughts on tattoos, relationship status, or political views. As Christians, that is our job. Our job is not to be the judge. We are not the jury. God is. So, we go out and we put a face on when we're dealing with the public. We make them feel like we're there for them. We give them a hug around the neck. We tell them God loves you. We love you. We hope to see you around. And then we go home. We go home and we talk about them. Maybe we saw something. We heard something. We've heard gossip about those people. But how do we turn that around? Because the thing is, the more we talk about people at home, the worse those people look to us. If we're sitting there talking all this gossip about people, about what they've done, what they're doing, what kind of sin is in their life, we start to see them as an embodiment of that sin. So how do we turn that around? It's simple, actually. Prayer. Prayer is the number one way to turn things around. I'll tell you what, I'm awful at praying for people. And if I do, I get to the point sometimes where I'm just like, God, please tell them to stop sinning because I'm tired of hearing about it. I'll admit it, I get bad about praying sometimes. But if we pray for them, say, please, Lord, lift this person up, bring them to you, help me to be a guiding light for this person. And we do that on a regular basis. And for everyone we know who is struggling, that'll change our mindset on them, people. It'll get us to the point where we'll see the potential in them rather than the sin in them. We'll start to love them. We'll want to love them. So, of course, like every good sermon, there's a 3-step process. Step 1 is prayer. But don't just pray for the people. Pray for yourselves as well. Pray for each other. Pray that God helps you to soften your hearts and to love these people. Because right now our hearts are hardened, and we need a lot of prayer to bring us to the point where we can love on people. We can be the most loving people, but we're still not there. We need the prayer. So, step 2, build a relationship with these people. Go out, take them to coffee. Help them to have a good influence in their lives. You don't have to do anything fancy. You don't have to do it just to try to get them in church, like I said before. Because, little hint, people, if you invite someone to church and they don't have a relationship with you, they aren't coming. I can look across this room right now and see that people that I invite on a regular basis, they aren't here. Because I don't have a relationship with them. And so if people are ignoring your request to come to church, maybe it's time to move on to step 2 there and build that relationship so they can have a better relationship with God. They can maybe even start their relationship with God. And step 3, love them. This series is about loving people and what that looks like. Over the next few weeks, you're going to be learning about all the different characteristics of love. and that's it. And there's nothing fancy. You just need to pray for them, build a relationship, and love on them. It's so easy that we've made it difficult. And that's where the rest of us need to come in. We need to be praying for each other. We need to be each other's support system. You're struggling, call someone up. Say, hey, Pastor Chris, I'm struggling right now. I've got this going on. I'm falling into this sin right now. I can't handle it. I need someone to pray with me. Call me up. If you want my number, I'll give it to you. Tim, I am struggling right now. I can't handle this. I've got an addiction that I keep falling back to. Trust me, I know about addiction. I've been clean since 2012, and it's a struggle on a daily basis. If anybody needs someone to call, I don't care what time it is. Give me your number ahead of time so I don't think you're a telemarketer calling me at midnight. But give me your number. I'll give you mine. Call me at any hour. I will turn my ringer up so I can get that call. Pastor Chris, I'm sure I'll do the same thing. There's many people in this church that are there for each other. But that leads me to my next point. That man right there, he's our pastor. He leads this congregation. He works on a daily basis to try to make things work here while balancing a secular job. He's selling insurance to people when he's not here. So he's doing multiple jobs on top of being a parent of too many kids. So we need to pray for him. He's just a man. There are no pedestals for a pastor to be put on. There are so many pastors that I know personally that I've seen taken out of ministry. And you know what? Instead of us gathering around them, hugging them and saying, I hope that you can pull through this. I'm praying that God lifts you up and you keep your eyes on him as you're going through this. We sit there and we gossip. Oh, did you hear what happened? Did you hear what that pastor did to be taken out of his ministry? Or did you hear that pastor just walked away? Pfft, good riddance. Shouldn't we be sitting there praying for these people? They are under more spiritual attack than a lot of people because they are sitting here bringing more people to Christ. They're sitting there focusing on feeding us, and we're eating it up. We're taking in all the spiritual food, not feeding ourselves and just taking it from them and not returning any prayer back to the pastors. Now, this is something that we don't normally do. We have altar calls for the congregation. We have altar calls so you can come up and get prayed for by the pastor. But something that I feel more churches need to do is what I'm about to do right now. Pastor Chris, if you'll come up here. We're going to gather around him. We're going to pray.